Good evening, everyone. Hello, hello, hello. Once again, you thought I wouldn't say my signature hello, 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 right? I did. Um, very nice to be back after our 2 weeks since last time with our time to talk. I am Rafael Caldas. This is Guilherme. Oh, this side. This is Guilherme. And we are your hosts for the night. What is time to talk? Time to talk is our fortnightly conversations about mediumship. Today we are in our episode 22. Where we're going to talk about mediumistic works in Spiritism. And I'll tell you a little bit about what I mean by that in a second. But before, a quick run through. Thank you to our broadcasters, the Spiritist Society of London, SSL, BUS, the British Union of Spiritist Societies, and Kardec Radio. All three institutions are committed to spreading the information and the knowledge about Spiritism around the world. So go check their Facebook pages, like their pages, go on YouTube, follow them so you can see more and more content and material about Spiritism. But time to talk. Time to talk is a program that the idea is for us to open a channel, open a conversation where you can come and bring your questions, comments, and participate with us. The idea is to have a conversation, have a chat. So anything that comes to your mind related to this topic, or maybe sometimes not, just drop your comments. Let us know what you think. Let us know if you have something to add or you'd like to clarify. Just drop us a hello, say where you watching us from, and we will bring it on the screen so we can incorporate in our conversation. Right. Today, our episode is Mediumistic Works in Spiritism. And where is this subject coming from? So the idea about this subject came from our last conversation. Our last conversation was about the turning tables. I don't have turning tables anymore. And I think we end up talking about how physical effects, mediums, still exist, but nowadays they are a bit more addressed, let's say, to other types of work, especially works related to cure and healing. And it just came idea, but wait a minute, we're talking about cure and healing and so on, but do people actually know what kind of mediumistic works exist out there from a spiritist perspective? What is the common activities that a medium can be involved with in a spiritist center? I do not intend to cover every single type of mediumistic work. And if when you go through the examples we have, you know about another one, and maybe the center you go to, or there's somebody that you know that have another type of work, please share with us as well. Describe them there, and then we can bring them on the screen to talk about it. Anything to add, Guilherme?
First of all, good evening, everyone. And when Rafael was saying about mediumistic works, quite often we think that it only happens inside that mediumship meeting where we have most of the time closed doors with a limited number of participants. But we may see that in so many other different activities, and we don't pay attention on it. But nevertheless, it is also a good example. So I'm pretty sure he will bring through the night a few examples that perhaps we never thought about it, but is also part of it.
Yeah, you're talking about myself because when we were discussing like the examples, you dropped some examples, and I was like, "Oh, I never thought about them as mediumistic work, but I guess they are." But I have questions about them. We're gonna get there. Um, I want to start, if you agree, talking about probably the most common thing that you will get in contact if you look for a spiritist group or a spiritist center. You will, from the beginning, get in contact with something called healing. And some people call it passes as well. I don't know if there are any other words. I know that here in the UK, it's usually translated to as healing. And we even mentioned a few episodes ago that Guilherme brought the term Reiki, which is similar kind of a principle behind. But anyways, I think that's probably the most common mediumistic activity that we have in spiritist groups. And what is that? How does that work? What does it mean? What do you mean everybody giving healing is a medium? So um, I'll explain in simple terms how I see it. Guilherme, you can then correct me or compliment or whatever. Um, Healing is a moment where a medium that is capable of donating energy in abundance, or a bit more. It doesn't even need to give energy in abundance, but it understands how to donate the energy for that specific purpose. Um, Uses a specific moment uh, to, together with their knowledge about how to give away the energy, allow the spirits that are working in the center with the group to use the energy and bring balance. Whatever the person might be needed, the person who is receiving healing receive the energy as a cleansing. It's like a cleansing shower of energy, let's say, that helps cleaning our energy, rebalancing the different chakras, rebalancing the different energy centers that we have, um, clear away any heavy matter or coming from thoughts or energy that we might be carrying with us, generating within us. And that is nothing but that. Is like a shower of energy that helps put your body and your soul back in balance. Did I say anything weird, Guilherme?
Nope, not at all. Not at all. And there's only one thing that you said that's one of the things that's most common. I think is one of the things that most of the people are looking for, right? Because most of the people come to the Spirit Center looking for that, right? But not every center has enough people to do it. Sometimes there are even nobody to do it, right? And it is amazing because you don't need to be special to do it. If you are alive, you have what is required to do. And then this is not the objective here tonight, but you have what is the most important. You have your animal energy. That's what you will be given. That's all. So if you are alive, you have it. Of course, there are a few things that are required to you to do if you want to do it well. But the main principle everyone has. Of course, if you follow a few things, few instructions, if you improve your conditions, if I may say like that, you work better. But that's another thing. I feel a bit uncomfortable with that name healing, really, because healing people relate to cure, and we do not cure anyone. We are facilitators, but we don't cure people, right? And I just checked here on the app. If we use passes from Portuguese into English, there's also pass, but it seems that we don't use that here.
Yeah.
But I felt strange when I heard healing for the first time. No, I'm used to it, but I felt a bit strange.
Yeah. I was the same. I think when I first heard it, I was also be like, maybe not the best translation, but doesn't matter, right? It's just it is what it is. Um, okay, I think that leads us to the other one, the one that we were talking about last week, which is cure. Oh no! Before we move on, um, I was planning to bring a video, but I couldn't get it. Is I want to explain a bit how for the few places I've been, the different ways that healing happened, and in some places it might be just like you are in a room and you study or you heard a specific lecture, and then there'll be a dedicated time where people will be praying, and then the medium will come either in front of you or behind you, and they will just impose their hands like that. That is one way. For a while, they will do that. They will be in prayer as well themselves, connecting to the good spirits and sending energy to you. In other places, um, instead of just in the imposition of hands, there might be some movement around you, different movements to clear your clean your energy, to send energy to specific place, and then to harmonize the energy around you. um, in some other places, you might go to a special room. So there's a dedicated room that the different groups throughout the night will go to a room, and then all of the healing happens in one single room. So there are many different, I guess, formats. But in the end, they're all the same. They all have the same function and that we just described.
The mechanism is the same. The
The
mechanism
mechanism.
is exactly the same, right? The way you may decide to do is because of the way you learned, because of the way you saw people doing it. When you extend your hands like Jesus used to do, a lot of people really defend that is the only way to do it because Jesus did like that. Well, I'm not Jesus, and I have I'm very far away from that really, and he did not even need to extend his hand. His eyes, his voice, his thought was more than enough to do it. But he decided to do it with hands. But
Yeah,
he is in a
a different
different
level.
level. It's a different level. And if you start to evaluate other possibilities, like magnetism, like the Chinese medicine, where they have the meridians and few things other, you start to understand why some mediums also move their hands. And when we talk about mediums moving their hands, we're not talking about any mediums. I have very good mediums, very well known mediums that they used to move their hands when they do a healing. The most important is the intention that's coming from your heart and from here. And then you manipulate your energy in conjunction with the energy of your benefactor or the worker dedicated for the activity. That's the most important.
Yeah. That leads me to the next activity, mediumistic activity, which is very similar, but that one is what we call cure. And usually we say cure passes, or I don't know how we would translate that in English. If anybody knows, drop me in the comments. It's like healing for a specific cure purpose. And that one is a similar mechanism in terms of intention, donation of fluid, magnetism, but that one is usually um, prescribed to people who might be going through specific issues, specific problems, diseases, illnesses, anyway, specific problems in their physical or spiritual bodies. And the medium, at least that's how I understand, the medium that can help with that specific type of cure healing or cure pass, um, is a medium that has a different type of mediumship that donate at least that's how I learned, that donates enough energy and more energy. I think that's more when you connect them to the physical effects. I'm not saying that all cure mediums are physical effects medium, but is in the same kind of realm, that the energy they can donate can be used by doing a bit more intense re-energizing and healing process focused on a specific area of your body or of your perispirit. That
You
one,
you are totally
before
right.
I give the mic to you, Guilherme, that one, from what I know, is a treatment. There is a number of times, there is other things that you need to do related to your studies, your other healings, and so on. And yeah, that's how I learned. Go, Guilherme.
I don't think we have a correct word to describe how we used to call that in Brazil in English. So I would call in the same way, just for the sake of understanding. I would not consider the same group of people that are able to do the first example we gave, we call healing, as someone that also can work on the second one. Normally, the mediums that work on the second one, they are indicated specifically from the benefactors to be involved in this type of work because most, as you rightly said, most of them have a peculiar characteristics to work in that kind of work. Quite often, the person that is coming to receive that energy, he or she is on a stretcher. You may have few stretcher in the dedicated area where you have mediums, dedicated mediums working in that activity with their own benefactors or spiritual workers. The intensity of this work is totally different than the first one. A lot of people talk about it, but you need to ask, are you familiar with that type of work? Because the energy is different. I did that for 10 years at least. In this practice, you see things that you do not see in the first one. You see a deeper treatment, if you can say like that, or a deeper healing, or whatever. We don't have a right word for in English, but we see things that are totally different than what we see on the first one. Right? The level of care, I would say, the duty of care of the mediums that participate on the second one is very specific. It's very specific regarding what you eat, what you drink, what you do, some choices you need to do on your day-to-day thing, because we are dealing with different type of organization, even on the spiritual world, to be able to have it done properly. So that's just to give you some different ideas of how they can be differentiated. And there are even people in the Spiritism that believe that's not Spiritism, but the mechanism behind is exactly the same. Working with the spirits, if it's not on the Spiritism, I don't know what it is. And we can also find the information in Kardec, in André Luiz, and other authors as well, explaining how it works, how it can be done, and things like that.
I just want to say hello to Elsa and to Nancy, who are here with us. And Nancy is actually saying that in Italy, they adopt the same name as Passi or Pass. And Elsa is explaining that when we were talking about the different types of healing movement or hand position, she said that there's a lay on hands, and then she mentioned that applying healing in our Spiritist center. There's no touching in a person. It's just like Heiki. So it's just laying on hands. So no, usually there's no touching. Um, Next, so we talked about healing, we talked about cure. What are the other common mediumistic activities that we have?
Water.
Water, fluidified water, energized water. Is that
How
what you're
does it?
talking about?
Yeah. How does it work?
How does it work? So, when you need energy and you are about to do an exercise or something, you might go and have an energy drink or a soft drink full of sugar or something that gives you that boost of energy. A fluidified water is very similar for other reasons. um, so in the center I used to go to, the fluidified water is when we were doing a moment of giving healing to everyone, and mediums would go to a specific area where there'll be a lot of water laid in different plastic cups or glasses, and they would, again, with the imposition of hands, energize, transfer the energy to the water. Guilherme mentioned many times about the studies on how water um, adheres and changes its physiology based on the energy that is, or the light or whatever it is exposed to. Anyways, so the mediums will do that, um, and then we'll energize the water. The water will hold that the principles that the medium is passing on to them. And then in the end, after the studies and so on, you go there and have a drink of that water. And that helps you in your healing, or you're energizing yourself again and the rebalancing of yourself, but from within your body. Look at that.
The water is the medium. They accept everything: light, smell, energy. Water is the element that is closer to the fluid cosmic universal that we will ever have. This is accepting everything. We can find water everywhere. And as you said, you have mediums that sometimes they gather around the water to fluidify the water, but not every institution, not every center does like that. My understanding is if the mediums are gathering together around the water to fluidify, they are donating the animal energy that we all have, plus the energy from the spiritual world, from the benefactors. Some places, they just ask people to leave the water in the specific table or area, and the spirits will manipulate the energy for the participants if they need to, or they will bring energy from the nature or from themselves. But when we are gathering around it and we are directing our thoughts and our energy, then we are definitely sending our energy. So we have a little bit of variety of the way people do, but the objective is exactly the same.
You made me think about, I was actually looking at my glass here. You made me think about not only in the center, but many people, I do it myself, do it when they are doing a gospel at home as well. They put a separated water. They know that in that moment, then in their house, that they are dedicating some time to study and reflect. Benefactors might come now, will come, and they can help energize their water as well during that moment.
We have to remember that when we are talking about mediums transfer their animal energy to other people or to the water, it's very important to remember that we can only give what we have. If I'm sick, very sick, what am I given? If I smoke a lot, what am I given? If I drink a lot, what am I given to a child, for example? So that is a transfer of energy. It's like a blood transfer. We know that if you do have some diseases, we cannot give blood. And the energy is the same. If my energy is positive, nobody's perfect, by the way, but if my energy is positive enough to help, is one thing. If I'm totally disbalanced, if I'm totally incorrect in the sense of bad actions, drinking, eating, everything wrong, what are you doing? So we need to have that in mind. It's not just because I want to. Yeah, I want to is the first thing. But then you need to prepare yourself to be able to do it.
Yeah. Next, what are the other activities? I can think of one that I think also is relatively common, especially for centers or groups that have mediums, like ostensive mediums. They are part of the group, and there's a serious work behind the group and so on, and discipline in terms of when the studies happen and so on, which is to receive messages either. Okay, how can I explain that in a simple way? It can either be a medium that hears and reproduces a message to a group. So let's say during the study, we have a study, we have a lecture, and somebody comes and has to expose their ideas and the development of their ideas on a specific subject. And then in the end, one of the mediums that participated in that lecture receive a message to share with the bigger group. Again, it might be either hears the message and reproduces. It might be it it lends its vocal cords to a spirit and the spirit speaks through them. It might receive a message during the meeting or at the end of the meeting um, through writing, but those are messages related to the group, usually related to the subject, needed for that moment. It makes sense to have the moment for the group that is there in study. That is one that's relatively common. Do you have the same experience, Guilherme, in your groups and centers?
Yeah, I've seen that now in few institutions. So yeah, that's pretty common as well. And the mechanism is we already spoken about that before, right? And yeah, I think everything you said is spot on.
Well, I have a question from Nancy. It's quite good.
Oh,
Before that,
before that, there's a comment.
is that the one about from the US?
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't know the name, but NGH. Nice to see you
Yes.
here. So yeah, lays on
Lay on hands.
lay on hands. Yeah, I like
Instead
it.
of healing. Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool.
I also mentioned that is we can heal like that in the UK as well. But usually you're healing.
Mhm.
Right. So related to like mediumistic work, Nancy is saying that it's not recommended to eat meat before lay on hands. Is that right? I remember my mom saying that. I actually remember that as well. But not for lay on hands, for other mediumistic works.
Yeah. What I would say, right? If you are a carnivore and not eating meat that day will bring you a very strong discomfort. It's better that you eat a little bit of meat than not eating meat and coming totally out of balance to do your healing or laying your hand, whatever, right? Would be better if in that particular day we avoid at least red meat. Would be better. But that for the normal healing is not we don't regard that too much into like we don't restrict that to people that work with healing. If you're going to work in that second possibility we spoke here already today, that the people on the stretchers where you have a more intense work, and then in that particular day it is strongly recommend not to eat meat not white, nor red meat. A fish, yeah, that's fine. But the other type of meats, no. No alcohol, no sex, no cigars, smoke. That, as I said initially, we have way more restrictions because of the nature of the work that will be performed. And those restrictions are also informed by the benefactors. They are responsible for this work. It's not just because we want to. No, we ask, they explain why, we understand why, and then yes, we in that particular scenario, we 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 would say no. On the first one, give and take. But we recommend people to eat light. But you have to have in mind, Nancy, that everything in excess is negative to you. Even if you take a lot of sugar in a day, is negative to you. So everything in excess you should avoid. Well, should avoid anyway, right? Especially on those days.
Yeah. I think a good point is there's a physiological point behind this, right? So the energy that you generate through your metabolism. So if your body is struggling to deal with high levels of sugar or with digestion of something that is quite heavy and it sits on your system, so those are things that will influence how your metabolism work and how you generate that animalized energy that will be used in that specific work.
We have
That's the reason why.
we have to remember that everything we ingest create energy. And that type of work, that type of mediumship work, what we donate is energy. So if I eat a lot of red meat, we are transferring that energy to our work. If I'm taking drugs, medicine, for example, I also transferring that to that work. So that's why we also say to people, are you okay? Are you feeling okay? Do you have any problem? We incentive people to tell us if they start to use any drugs. Well, I mean drugs, medicine, right? And because some of them will not interfere. Some have drugs will interfere, right? Some prescribed drugs are not recommended at all to have the person working with that type of mediumship for that particular type of work. It's case by case, right?
Mhm. Right. I also share with us that the name of our friend from the US is Norma. Hi, Norma. Thanks for your comments and nice to have you here with us. But next, other activities that we have, mediumistic activities that we have in a Spiritist Center. The next one that I think about, still related to receiving messages, like the one we are talking about in lectures and big study groups, is I guess what we call, let me see how I would translate that. A spiritual consultation, maybe, where people might be facing specific issues or problems in their lives, and they might want guidance or help or whatever it is from a spiritual perspective. And in some places, you are able to either write or send a message or request something, and then you will receive a response from the spirits. Usually, it's written, but it could be also somebody that hears the spirits and then writes down the answers, and then you receive your answer. Of course, in for those cases, as like we say many times, you wouldn't ask things from just a purely material or egocentric, self-centered perspective, right? Because if you do, of course, you'll be able. You can still send the questions that you want, but you might not get the answer that you expect.
I, in particular, don't like to incentive that type of work because it creates like a bond, and people sometimes they start to ask right questions in the beginning, and then afterwards they start to ask about anything, and then if they don't have an answer, they don't even know what to do sometimes. So I prefer not to incentive that type of work, but I know they exist,
Yeah.
and I also know that in some cases they are very positive, but there are some type of work that are I'm not very fond of it.
Yeah, I think the risk you run is you have, in theory, everything at your disposal to make your decisions and your free will to do it. So, but as Guilherme said, it's a case by case. You cannot generalize. Um, Another one that just came to my mind, and it might not be, I guess, normally, as far as I know, it might not be normally, I guess, called mediumistic, is the fraternal assistance. If
Yes.
direct
It-
translation, yeah,
yeah, yeah.
yeah,
It depends of the institution. Some institution you just get a person that is can hear well, is prepared to listen to people, right? But some institutions also try to accommodate mediums to do that job. So when you're talking to the person, it's more kind. Try to go on that avenue. Ask those questions. Think about that with, and so it does help
yeah,
because we don't know anything, right? But sometimes they say, ask about the mom. How is the mom? And that's enough to open up a different possibility to the conversation, and it does help. So it depends from
yeah.
institution to institution.
But I think it's fair to say, look, it's there's always a an element of inspiration, right, when dealing with those conversations. So in that sense,
Mhm.
there is mediumistic work.
But let's say, for example, on that second example of healing we gave with the stretches or thing like that, we have a kind of conversation before the person start to do that type of thing. And in that particular situation, it is a fraternal assistance, but in that specific situation, having a medium able to listen to the instructions while we talk to the person is very handy. It's very handy.
What else?
I will tell you something that's my preferred job,
Okay,
the soup.
that is one that I want to ask you what you meant by that. So soup.
First of all, I like to eat. So it's my preferred work in the Spiritist Center. Second of all, is we have to remember that some of the people that come in to eat in the institution, even when you go to distribute it on the streets, is the only food they have. Sometimes, not only that day, even before. In our institution, back in Brazil, for example, we have very young kids, very, very young kids. That's the only food they had that particular day. They come from a very poor community, and they only go to the place, to our institution. They don't care about anything else. They need to eat. So when we are preparing the food, the soup, we also have mediums over there. What we do with water, we also do with the soup. So it's a simple way to try to boost the properties of that food to help the kids. So that's why I said some institution may even do that without even thinking about it.
Mhm.
But if you think a little bit more, yeah, send a medium, one medium or two or three
Yeah.
to cook the soup. We do a prayer on the beginning, we do a prayer in the end. We do exactly the same as we do with the water, because I think the soup has at least 50% of water in it as well, isn't it? And our physical body has more than that. So everything is energy. So if we do work with that mentality, that's why I said to you, this is one of the possibilities.
No, you're right. After you describing, made me think. I in the place I used to go, there was a specific work that was to prepare um, plates of food and put in specific containers and then to distribute to people on the streets. And there were the regulars that we knew where they were, and every week we would go to them and bring food to them. And there were new people every week that we would discover, find out, and so on, or be in the same area. And the work around the cooking process, the making of the plates, the separation of the groups to cover different areas, and the different moments where we would pray. We would pray in the beginning. We were starting to prepare the food. We would pray before we left to the streets, and you would pray at the end. I think I never really stopped to think about it, but um, for sure, in that moment, we are donating energy, and we know that that food is not nurturing just the body, which is the immediate need, but it's also helping with any unbalance from a spiritual perspective as well.
Mhm.
In some cases, that moment of the week was the only moment where those people would be interacting with anyone outside the group. So there is and as you said, everything is energy. There is an element of exchange of energy through that work as well. Right. What else? Before I go to the spiritual assistance, any other one that comes to your mind? Let me go through the list you sent me. Let me take a look.
I understand that every activity, the member of the institution use his words, an evangelization, a lecture. Even the person that stays on the gate saying good morning, good evening, be welcome, they can also be using mediumship without even noticing. Because a lot of the words that we say, if we said in the right moment, in the right time, you may start to promote changes already. One of the key factors to have people really enjoying and deciding to stay in the institution is the way they are received. Sometimes it's not the guy that's doing the lecture, it's not the person that's managing anything, it's the person that's over there on the gate. Good morning, you're welcome. What can I do for you? Sometimes it's the little detail that makes a difference. And sometimes we see that person that no one gives enough attention speaking for like half an hour with the person that we never saw. He's working, perhaps better than we can do inside, perhaps better than other people think they are doing. So it is part of every activity where you can use your words can be part of it. I would include, at least I would include as one possibility. Of course, if you say bad things, we know it's not going to work, right? But if we are prepared to help, yes. Because remember, if you are speaking to people, you are also magnetizing people through your lecture, through your conversation. Sometimes it's better than a healing, depending on the people, depending on the intention. Sometimes people don't even know they can do that, and they do nevertheless. So yeah, there's a lot of few things you can see happening on the
Yeah.
day to day that I would include on that part.
That's a very good point, and it's making me think about we always hit on the same key saying, look, mediumship is a natural occurrence that happens around us all the times. It always has, it always will. And we tend to hear that and associate to something like seeing ghosts or whatever. And But in reality, every single activity that we are involved with, there is interchange and connection with spirits. And especially now that we're talking about different mediumistic works within a spiritist group or spiritist center, as Guilherme said, in every single activity, there is exchange, there is inspirations, there is guidance, there is opportunity to exchange energy, to send energy, to receive energy under the guidance of our benefactors. So yeah, everything is a mediumistic work at some point. It made me think about something else. I remember having these discussions. I think it was with my mother, maybe at some point. Um, that we were talking about the people that would give lectures in the center. They would be invited to, like every month they would have a day, they would come and talk about a specific subject. And I remember saying, no, but th- this, no, I remember hearing, well, this is a type of mediumship. It's, you have to be inspired, have to be connected with the benefactors and the mentors. They will guide the study as well. They will help you with the reflections, examples, and so on, what needs to be said in that moment. And I remember saying, absolutely not. I don't accept that this is mediumship. Anybody can study something and go there and give a lecture. And it wasn't until I, I got familiar with the subtleness, the subtlety of being inspired and connected in terms of ideas that I realized what that meant.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. I was like, oh, okay, I know what you mean. I know what you mean.
Sometimes we study, we plan to do the best lecture ever. We prepare ourselves days in
Mhm.
advance. We bring the computer, we prepare everything. When you open your mouth, it goes at 108 degrees different. Nothing you plan works. Nothing you thought you would say, you will say. And you end up saying something totally different.
Yeah.
How can we explain that if it's not intuition, if it's not someone telling you, today you don't need to talk about that. Today there's this particular person that needs to hear that. You see that person on the end, she's very quiet. So you need to talk about this little subject. And then your whole lecture start to change. On the end, you see, hmm, okay, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. But like most of the examples we're giving here, people are going to say, yeah, right, fine, I get it. But what I'm actually interested is ostensive mediumship. What kind of ostensive mediumship works there are in the spiritist centers around there? And we did mention a bit about it from the cure perspective, and they mentioned a bit about receiving the messages at the end of a study or of a lecture, or receiving messages for specific assistance and questions that were sent for specific cases. Those are examples. But yeah, you're going to say something, Guilherme?
The internet, if you know where to look, the internet can show us some proceedings that are made in some institutions that people may even say that's not possible. Some interventions made by the mediums and the spirits, materialized or not. So there are things that to understand we have to care about the study. Otherwise, we'll think that's nonsense. But it's there, recorded, registered by serious people that gain nothing with that. There is one institution in Rio de Janeiro called Lar de Frei Luís. It's massive, it's a city. They treat thousands of people every week. They have those particular type of reunions, meetings to treat people that are in need. And sometimes people that have been disregarded by the normal science because they had nothing to do anymore. So when they realized there was nothing else that could be done by science, they tried to do something else. And some of the people they managed to be helped. Not everyone, some of them. And it's difficult to comprehend the the amount of work that come together to a place like La de Frei Luis. But it's beautiful. It's beautiful to see the amount of people they are helped, and they do not ask anything in return. They don't ask for money. They don't ask for anything, right? So this is one of the things that's very important. If you want to go to a place where you may find something like that, key number the key number one is pay attention if they will not ask anything in return. If they will ask for anything in return, it's a good start.
But I wanted to finish, we're getting towards the end. I want to finish talking about another activity which is very common, and is the spiritual assistance. That's how I'm going to call it. Don't know if there's any other names, but spiritual assistance, I think, is a good way of calling it. And that one is a dedicated session to help our spiritual friends who are discarnate, who have already passed from this plane, and they might be suffering or going through specific troubles, and they need help. In those, I think, again, a lot of spiritist groups have those sessions where we have mediums that, again, are able to either hear or see a spirit and then tell and translate what they are feeling, what they're going through, what they're saying. Or in most groups, we have mediums that are able to land their vocal cords, and the spirits can communicate through them using their voice. Very common as well. And it can help, like there's like a very wide very wide possibilities in terms of what kind of need, what kind of help those spirits need. And you have from everything. You have spirits that might not be aware of their situation, and they're confused and they're stuck, they cannot move on in their journey because they're not quite sure of what's going on. Or you might have spirits that are stuck in things that they did or they're waiting for. And through that moment, by being able to use a medium to express that what they're feeling, what they're thinking, and talk to someone else. There'll be other people in the group. They'll be the ones, I guess, guiding them through and talking through with them to help them rationalize and think about what's going on. They are finally in contact with somebody. They are finally feeling things closer to what it was when they had the body. There's somebody giving attention to them and seeing them and talking to them. So there's a lot of elements that help them understand the situation and move on from wherever they were stuck.
I have a different name for that. I call that mediumship meeting.
Mediumship meeting.
Yeah. And we have different degrees of mediumship meeting, because every meeting has an objective, and depending on the objective of the meeting, we have a different intensity of the participants of the meeting. So we have more than one. And very common people relate to mediumship meeting as this obsession meeting, but this is a mistake in my opinion, because it's very difficult to see a true this obsession meeting everywhere. And when you said it's very common to see those meetings, I wish I could say the same all over the world, but I know it's not. Because a lot of people miss the opportunity to make it for many reasons, but they miss the opportunity to make it. And we know from fact that we need so much those interventions to help our friends, that if we are truly spiritist, part of a spiritist center, we should not waste an opportunity to start a mediumship meeting. Not only one, open mediumship meetings as they become required. Because quite often we are prepared to give lectures, prepared to give studies, and that's it. Now you figure out yourself what to do. If you are ostensive medium, what I'm going to do now. So I really encourage every spiritist and spiritist center to evaluate the need and the possibility that we all have to have mediumship meetings. And if we already have one, that we cannot accommodate more mediums as they come, because when they come to a spirit center, they are looking for help. Basically, is that. If we are part of a spirit center, we have everything we need to help. If we decide not to do, that comes on our tab. If I have means, if I have the knowledge, I have the possibility to do, and I decide not to do for any reason, that is on my tab, on your tab, because that's what we're supposed to do. Because there's a lot of institutions that believe, no, I have already a meeting once a week, and that will suffice. That will suffice whom? That will suffice the person that come to the institution asking for help? Or that will suffice you because you don't want to have an additional burden or additional work, or you don't want to have additional work to plan, to coordinate, and to start a second meeting. We have to remember that every time a medium comes to a spirit center with his mediumship needing attention or not, what he's trying is to find a place to work, to practice, and then do what we always tell: charity. If we don't create that opportunity for them, who is responsible for that? We need to think about it.
Yeah. On those specific meetings, what I want to say is also that those are meetings that they are not open, right? It's not anyone can come and join and watch. Those are meetings that are kept usually in as closed meetings. There's as they become established, right? I think there are different stages, but as they become established, they are closed because there's an entire environment that's prepared for that meeting, and it counts with the what's the word the harmony, let's say, within the group, in terms of thoughts, in terms of intention, in terms of connection, and so on. And depending on how many people you have involved, they might not know what the meeting is about and how the meeting works and the role of the different people in the meeting. You might end up, I guess, getting in the way or making it worse instead of making it better. And on top of everything, what's the point, right? The point of the meeting is to help these spirits, not to fulfill anybody's curiosity or answer to anybody's curiosity in terms of how it works. So those won't be meetings that usually you'll be able to go into a center and sit down and watch. Guilherme?
What if the benefactor of your institution give you an instruction to have an open meeting? What if?
I think then it's different. It's a different game. That is a different game. I think first of all, you need to have the confidence on that message. You need to confirm that message. You need to understand the reasons why.
Mhm.
A lot of
I
questions.
would recommend people to study the Spiritist magazine from Kardec, to see how the meetings were, how they did, why they did. It's a good start. It's a good start.
Yep.
Oh, it's our
Right.
time.
We are at the end of it. I think we gave a lot of examples of things that you find in Spiritist groups. Hopefully, it will shine some light if you had any questions or ideas, or if you were concerned about anything. Hopefully, it made it a bit more easy and simple to understand. If you were in contact, or if you get in contact with a Spiritist group, what to expect in terms of mediumistic works. And yeah, it was quite a nice chat. I say thank you to everyone, Elsa, Nancy, and Norma, for being with us. I don't know if there's anyone else there. They didn't drop their names. And before we go, let me go to the announcements. The usual. We have our Nosso Lar or Astral City Studies. The Tuesdays that we don't have time to talk, you have Astral City Studies with Guilherme. So you can go with him. And we also have the Mediums book study every Saturday. You have the details there. You can also find the details on our Facebook page. And it's open to everyone. We are studying the Mediums book step by step, every single page that they have. And tomorrow we have our coffee break with Munir, when he talks a little bit about the book Genesis. All for you to join online and to bring your questions to us. That is what I had for today. Guilherme, any final words?
Thank you, everyone. That was a very pleasant time to be here, and looking forward to see you in 2 weeks' time.
Hope so. Thank you, everyone. See you in 2 weeks. Cheers. Bye.
Bye-bye.